food is disgusting. Ugh, the people are so rude. You have to wade through smoke to get absolutely anywhere. These are just some of the comments I found online about Disneyland Paris, but how true are they? If you've seen any of my videos before, you will know I am a big fan of Disneyland Paris, but today I am going to break down the 5 worst things about Disneyland Paris and give you some tips on how to navigate your way around these so you can have a better experience. My name is Sophie from Most Magical Guides, and I make videos all about how to plan Disney World and Disneyland Paris trips so you can have a most magical time. If you like this sort of content, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below and the bell notification so you know whenever I release new videos. So let's dive into the 5 worst things about Disneyland Paris. Bad food. One of the #1 complaints about Disneyland Paris is the food is bad. Now I have to say personally, my past couple of trips I have not experienced this. In fact, I've been really impressed with the food. I would say that the quick service offerings are kind of limited in the types of offerings you can get. You can get things like pizza, pasta, burgers, typical theme park fare, but there's not a lot of variety or choice. So if you are thinking of dining in mostly quick service locations, just be prepared that the food might be a bit samey. Now I have to say, I've been super lucky that even the quick service food I've had has been really, really good. Even basic things like the pasta Neapolitan from Pizzeria Bellanotte, I wasn't expecting much. It's pasta in tomato sauce. Is it going to be that good? I was so surprised. The pasta was cooked really well, the sauce was really rich, so I have been very lucky. But I do think knowing where to eat plays a big part. Some of the best quick service locations in Disneyland Paris are places like Fuente del Oro for the burritos, Last Chance Cafe for kind of barbecue, chili type things, and Casey's Corner for the hot dogs. I'm a vegan, so when I go to Disneyland Paris, I just eat the vegan food there, and I was actually super impressed. Maybe the vegan food is amazing and they've kind of neglected the other things, I'm not sure, but I can tell you that all of the vegan options I have been very good. If you are looking for more variety, I would suggest going to table service restaurants. These meals do cost more money, but there are lots of different types of cuisine available. For a table service meal, if you have 3 courses, it will cost you around €40, whereas a quick service meal will be about €10 to €15. So there is quite a big jump. But if you can mix table service and quick service, you can find loads of amazing dining at Disneyland Paris. One area that I would say that food maybe is a bit lacking is the breakfast buffet. Now I have tended to stay at the cheaper resorts, particularly with solo travel because they're the most affordable, and the buffets can be very basic. If you have dietary requirements like me as a vegan, they don't have much on offer. If you don't have any dietary requirements, it's still not great. There are different options, but the food isn't going to wow you. And for the price you pay for breakfast, it is quite expensive. What I always do instead is take cereal bars with me. They are super cheap, easy to put in the case, and then I just have them before going to the park, and then it saves me all that money on breakfast. There's a little bit lackluster in the hotels. Something I would recommend is looking at the Disneyland Paris website before your trip, because you can see all the menus there. This way you can get an idea of how much it will cost you, but also what type of food is available. That way you can eat in the restaurants that serve the food that you like, rather than just finding somewhere and then not enjoying it. One bugbear that I do have about Disneyland Paris and the restaurants is that they shut early. If you travel in off-peak seasons, kind of in the winter or the early spring, late autumn, a lot of the restaurants will shut very early, between 4 and 5 o'clock. This causes a big problem when you're trying to find food in the evenings, meaning you either have to eat outside the parks in Disney Village or your hotel, or eat super early. When I visited in March, lots of the restaurants shut by 5 p.m, but the park did not close until 8 p.m. So that meant the few restaurants that were open were super busy. We went to Casey's Corner on Main Street and it was rammed. It probably took us 30 minutes to wait to get the hot dog, and then when we got to the counter it was another 15 minutes for them to cook it, and then when everything came out it was super rushed. It just was not a great experience. So this is something I would say is a valid concern. What I would suggest is getting the Disneyland Paris app. That way you can see on your phone what restaurants are open during your trip, but also what times they shut. This can kind of help you plan your dining out a bit better whilst you're there. The obvious big downside to the restaurant shutting early is if the restaurants that you like eating in are shut, you then have to scramble to find somewhere else. And this can be a big problem if you have a dietary requirement or there's only certain types of food you enjoy eating. Another problem I find with the dining is it can be super hard to book dining reservations. You are meant to be able to book your dining reservations via the app 60 days in advance of your trip. Sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. So I have found that sometimes the reservations open up before the 60 days, and other times a restaurant doesn't pop up until 2 or 3 days before your trip. This can be a problem if you have the dining plan, because you would have probably looked up the menus, decided where you want to eat, and you're ready to book at the 60-day mark. Then you find some of them have already opened up the reservations and the reservations are gone, or they're just not appearing on the app at all. Now you can phone Disney to book the dining reservations. The downside is that it's an international number and it will charge you, and you can be on the phone line for quite a while. This is why the app is so handy, but it can be unreliable. What I would say is keep persevering, carry on checking every now and then, because people's plans do change and reservations do open up and randomly restaurants will suddenly appear. If you do have the meal plan and you really struggle to get reservations, do try phoning that number, or whilst you're at Disneyland Paris, speak to your reception, or sometimes they even have a dining reservation desk, and explain that you've paid for the dining plan but you can't get reservations, and they will try and fit you in. This of course isn't ideal because you're kind of at the whim of if they can fit you in or not, and the time that they can fit you in rather than the time you would like to eat. So what I would say is persist, keep looking up, and definitely try the phone number if you don't have any luck with the app. Lack of information. This is actually something that I do find a little bit irritating about Disneyland Paris. A lot of the information you need is not given out until a few days ahead of your trip. So things like park hours, show times, what is open and closed, these things sometimes don't appear until a few days before you get there. As someone who likes to plan, this drives me crazy, because I want to know what times things are happening at, when are the fireworks going to be, what times are the parks open and closed, and it's very frustrating that you get the information just ahead of your trip. One of the great things about Disneyland Paris is it does not require a lot of planning, unlike places like Disney World where you need military precision planning. So it is a lot easier to go with the flow. This is something that niggles me, but I think that's mostly because I'm a planner and I like to know months in advance where everything is, what time it's happening, and can I go to it. But I've always been able to get the information when I needed it whilst I was there, so it's not too much of a problem. It's just kind of a me problem, not a them problem. Another thing we found was that the wait times were actually a lot longer than the posted time. This meant if you were wanting to go to a show or eat somewhere, oftentimes you were having to rush there because you were there a lot longer than you were expecting to be. And one other thing that suffers from lack of information is merchandise, particularly the 30th anniversary merchandise. It's very difficult in advance to know where the merchandise is going to be, whether it's going to be in stock, what are you going to find, because it's not really posted anywhere. The other option is to follow Disneyland Paris fan accounts that will give you the information. I personally love DLP Report on Twitter. They post updates every single day and they're really good at telling you this is where this piece of merchandise will be, this is how much it is, this is when it's going to go on sale. They are perfect. A side note to this is that also there is not a lot of the 30th anniversary merchandise. The main two shops you will find it is in Flora's and Emporium when you first enter on Main Street, but these sell out very quickly and it's not continuously replenished. So whilst I was there, a lot of the items I was looking for I never saw, or I saw it once and then was sold out and never came back again. So this is something that is quite frustrating, particularly when it's special merchandise that you really want to get as a collector. Disneyland Paris is expensive. So something else people talk about a lot is it being expensive. Now I do think my view is kind of swayed a bit because I'm so used to planning for Disney World where everything is so expensive that to me things at Disneyland Paris I'm like, oh, that's not so bad. But if I think rationally and objectively, yes, it is still quite expensive. So as I was saying earlier, for say a burger and chips, if you get the meal deal, it's about €15. If you have a 3-course table service meal, that's about €40. So food can be quite pricey. Merchandise can be expensive depending on what you buy, but but there are cheap things if you look for them. I found lots of little knickknacks, so stuff like magnets, tote bags for €5, which are perfect to bring home with you as a memento, but they haven't broken the bank. One thing that you can't really get around is the ticket prices. Now, if you do stay at a Disneyland hotel, your tickets are included, which is a big benefit. But if you are staying off-site and you have to buy your tickets yourself, they can be pricey. The cheapest way to buy them is to not have park hopper tickets, so have tickets where you just visit one park a day. Also, the more days you visit, the cheaper it is. You can also use websites like attractiontickets.com, who will sell tickets with a slight discount. I personally would still recommend booking with Disneyland Paris itself because you can get a full refund up until a few days ahead of your visit if you need to. For a few pounds extra, I think having that safety is absolutely worth it. The other thing that is expensive is transportation to Disneyland Paris. So the main ways you can get from the airport to Disneyland Paris are the Magical Shuttle if you are staying in a Disney resort or in one of the Good Neighbour resorts. You can also get the high-speed train that takes just 10 minutes from Charles de Gaulle Airport to Chessy Station at the gates of Disneyland Paris. Or you can get the metro. The metro is the cheapest option, but it also takes the longest. This can take up to 70 minutes and it can be quite a faff. During my last trip, I was lucky enough to meet Ray. Hi Ray. And they were telling me how they'd got the metro to Disneyland Paris and it was such a faff that in fact on the return journey they were like, we're just going to get a taxi because it was so much stress, it was not worth it. So although the metro is the cheapest option, it can be the most difficult way to get to Disneyland Paris. The other options are the Magical Shuttle and the high-speed train, which are a lot more expensive. The Magical Shuttle for a return trip costs about €42 per person. The high-speed train is the quickest way to get from the airport to Disneyland Paris. It takes just 10 minutes, which is fantastic, but this is the most expensive mode of transportation. The high-speed train costs around 30 or more euros each way. It's really expensive. For a 10-minute journey, it's so expensive. On an upcoming trip, I'm going to use the train and a return journey is costing me €70 for a 10-minute train. €70. So I would say this is something to consider, and it is one of the negatives about Disneyland Paris. It is kind of easy to get to Disneyland Paris with the train or with the Magical Shuttle, but it comes at a cost. So as I mentioned, if you stay at a Disney hotel, you do get your park tickets included as part of your package. Something that Disneyland Paris do is called price match. So basically, if you find that same package somewhere else for cheaper, they will refund you the difference and give you a €20 gift card. This is a super handy way to get your Disneyland hotel and park tickets for the best price and also get some free money. I'll pop a link up here to my video all about price match so you can find out all about this service and how you can get your refund and your €20 gift card. Rudeness. Now, something you will hear people talk about is rudeness that they've experienced in the parks. Now, I have to say I've been very lucky. I would say 95% of my experiences have been fantastic, particularly with cast members. In fact, some of the best interactions I've ever had with cast members have been in Disneyland Paris. So I've been going to Disneyland Paris for 30 years now. That makes me feel really old. I don't want to say that. But I have been there for 30 years and I would say that in recent years you have noticed the customer service has really improved and it kind of is that Disney level that you're expecting. Every now and then you may meet some people in the parks or even some cast members that perhaps aren't giving you the Disney feeling that you're hoping when you're visiting a Disney park. Sometimes it can just be down to cultural differences. Things that we would find polite aren't maybe perhaps done in other cultures, so they're just not aware that it's something that we're like, oh, what's this happening for? But one thing that will irritate us Brits is queue jumping, and this is probably something you will experience. When you join a queue, you will see that the queues can be quite wide, and there will be people just walking straight past the queue to go further up, completely ignoring the fact that a queue system has been formed. This can be particularly irritating for us Brits as we are world champions at queuing. We've got this down, we know the rules. You may also find a person on their own in a queue and then towards the front suddenly 6 or 7 people turn up. That is also something I have experienced at Disneyland Paris. Unfortunately, it is one of those things you just kind of have to brush off, take a moment, carry on with the day, because there's not really much you can do about it. So what I would say is you may encounter some rudeness in the parks. Typically, it's more likely to come from guests, and I think it's more of a clash of cultures than people directly being rude. And again, with cast members, I've had some of the best experiences I've ever had with cast members, and on the whole, I would say it's been fantastic. There are a few people where I think maybe culture clashes do come into play and it's not kind of the Disney spirit or the Disney way, but that is very few and far between, luckily. Smoking. Now, a lot of people do talk about smoking a lot when it comes to Disneyland Paris, and it is something you may see. Now, I have to say, I haven't seen it lots. There's definitely no wading through the smoke to get to places, none of that. But you will on occasion see people smoking around the parks. This feels really foreign because in the UK, you definitely wouldn't see that. We're not used to it, so it does feel strange. Now, Disneyland Paris do actually have dedicated smoking areas, and they kind of put them off to the side so that they are kind of discreet. Unfortunately, not all people follow this. This is kind of bothersome if you are waiting in a queue or if you are at a parade or a nighttime show because you can't really escape it. Now, I would say the past few trips I've done, I've only encountered people doing it in those circumstances once or twice. It isn't a regular occurrence. It's not going to be something that's going to be really bothersome. But when you do see it, it will stand out because it is something we are not used to seeing. So those are my top 5 worst things about Disneyland Paris. Now, most of them you can find ways around, so they don't have to be something that detract from your trip at all. I kind of think it's good to know in advance things, so if you do see them or experience them, you either know how to counteract it or you're prepared, so it's not such a negative experience for your trip. But I have to say, Disneyland Paris is one of my favourite parks in the world. It feels so magical. It is such a great tonic to escape from everything else that's going on in the world. And I really have the most magical time when I visit. So to counteract this video, I am going to be doing a video soon all about the best things about Disneyland Paris. So you can also see the other side of the argument. I hope this video has been helpful in highlighting some things you might come up across and how to navigate around them. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I hope you have a most magical day. Bye bye.